Welcome back. I want to provide an update regarding foreclosure numbers in the United States right now. This is based on two reports from CoreLogic as well as data analytics giant Black Knight. So let's first talk about this latest report from CoreLogic, just announced last week here. And this report, even though it was just announced about 1 week ago, covers the month of July. And they'll share another report which covers the month of August, but they share very different trends here. So that's why I want to share both these reports with you guys. So this report from CoreLogic is published on a monthly basis. It covers on a national, statewide level, and also the metro level as well. They share the areas in which delinquencies are increasing the most, and also the areas in which delinquencies are improving the most as well. In regards to a national level here, mortgage delinquencies, which of course is defined as a homeowner who is at least 30 days or more past due on paying their mortgage payment. 1 year ago, back in July 2022, the rate nationwide was at 3%. Now it has decreased to 2.7%. That's a year-over-year change of down by 0.3 percentage points. According to Molly Bolsel, who's the principal economist for CoreLogic, she stated the following here. Overall, U.S. Mortgage delinquencies remain near a record low in July. Since most borrowers have substantial amounts of home equity, those who have locked in low rates that do enter later stages of delinquency will most likely not experience foreclosures. In other words, because a lot of people have ample equity in their houses right now, rather than getting foreclosed on, they're going to decide to sell their houses instead. With that said, let's have a look at the states that have the highest rates of delinquencies right now. So leading the nation was actually in Louisiana and Mississippi. Their rate is at 5.1%, quite a bit higher compared to the nation as a whole at 2.7%. After Mississippi was New York, West Virginia, Alabama, and Oklahoma. Something to keep in mind, though, is that even though these 6 states here are fairly higher compared to the nation's average, they're still all down compared to July of 2022. CoreLogic also provided how each of these different buckets fares here. So for example, as I noted here, 1 year ago, the mortgage delinquency rate was at 3%. Now it's only at 2.7%. Dark green bars right here is July this year. But as you can see here, for each of these buckets here, not a lot of changes, fairly the same levels compared to 12 months ago. So in other words, not improving, but not getting worse in most of these buckets here. CoreLogic also noted here that overall delinquency rates and foreclosure rates are still hovering near record lows this July. Only Idaho saw overall delinquencies rise compared to July of 2022. That was the only state that experienced an increase in their rate. But rates in that state still remain very low. Meanwhile, there's only 16 metro areas nationwide that had a slight annual delinquency increase. So they actually track, I think it's 384. I actually have a note right here. Yeah, they actually track 384 metros nationwide. And out of those 384, only 16 have experienced an increase compared to 1 year ago. Having said that, the 16 metros that went up compared to 12 months ago was a drop from the previous month back in, back in May, or June, I should say, when there was 31 metros that posted increases. Here's something I found to be really interesting as well, because they actually looked at the transition rates. So for example, they examined all stages of delinquencies, as well as the transition rates that indicate the percent of mortgages moving from one stage of delinquency into the other. So let me briefly explain here. This is current to 30 days. This is the rate of people moving from being current on their payments in order to getting to at least 30 days late. That is the same transition rate we saw last year. In contrast, for the people moving from 60 days late to 90 days late, that moved from 39.1% to 34.5%. So fewer people moving from 60 days to 90 days past due. And that right there is something I closely follow, because if this rate were to increase, meaning more people are moving from 60 days to very serious delinquencies, 90 days or more past due, that would imply that foreclosures will likely increase in the months ahead. Something to keep in mind though is that even though if someone moves from 60 days to 90 days past due, does not mean they're going to get foreclosed on. And also on top of that, if they were to get foreclosed on, the foreclosure process can take about a year or even longer depending on the area. And speaking of serious delinquency rates, again, 90 days or more past due, here are the states here that have the highest rates, even though they are still very low. So Louisiana and New York have the same rate at 1.9%. After that was Mississippi, Oklahoma, DC, Illinois, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Alabama, and Arkansas. Also, when looking at overall delinquencies, this is at least 30 days or more past due. There's only one state, which was Idaho, that posted a small year-over-year increase in their rate. There's only two states, which was Arizona and Utah, that were unchanged. So here is a map of the US here, obviously, but the areas here shaded in green mean that the states that are actually getting worse here. So again, Arizona and Utah, I should say, were flat compared to 1 year ago, whereas Idaho, the only state that experienced an increase in their overall rate. In contrast, the areas in red have the biggest improvements. In other words, overall, their 30-day plus delinquency rate actually fell by at least 0.5%. So for example, Alaska, New York, Oklahoma, and West Virginia experienced the biggest decreases nationwide. CoreLogic also provided analysis regarding how each of the metros fared as well. So serious delinquencies is defined as 90 days or more past due. There's only two metro areas in which the serious delinquency rate actually increased. There was 12 metros that actually stayed the same. This is on it compared to 1 year ago. In contrast, there was 370 metro areas in which the rate actually decreased. Okay, that's the latest report from CoreLogic. Let's have a look at Black Knight, just announced about a week and a half ago here. It says here that mortgage performance remains strong, but slowing improvement suggests delinquencies may be nearing cycle lows. So here's what they had to say here. At 3.17%, the US delinquency rate improved by 4 basis points in August and is nearly a full percentage point below its 2015 through 2019 same month average. So what they're saying here is that the rate at 3.17%, looking at the same month, which was August 2015 through August of 2019, the average back then was around 4%. Now it's only at 3%. Also, serious delinquency rates, which again is 90 days or more past due, continue to improve, falling 20,000 from July to 448,000. That may sound like a lot though, but that's the lowest levels since June of 2006. In contrast, early stage delinquencies is actually getting worse. This is for 30 and 60-day delinquencies here, inching up by 2,000, marking the third consecutive monthly increase. This is something we should be following though, because this could move into a later stage delinquencies, such as 90 days or more past due, and it becomes a foreclosure in about a year, or these people could become current on their payments and move out of these buckets here. So will this get worse or will it improve? Of course, I'll definitely keep you posted here. August is 31,900 foreclosure starts. We're still 21% below August 2019 pre-pandemic levels. So there was about 32,000 foreclosure starts, which is more or less the beginning phase of the foreclosure of a house in August, but that's still well below, or about 21% below pre-pandemic levels. Also, when looking at foreclosure sales, these are finalized foreclosures. For the month of August, there was 6,900. That's a decrease of 13% from July. On top of that, the level of foreclosure sales is roughly half pre-COVID. Black Knight also provide this top 5 states that have the highest rates of late payments on your mortgage payments here. So the highest non-current percentage here is Mississippi at 7.58%. That's a slight increase of 1 percentage point compared to 1 year ago, but well below the 23.6% rate they saw back in October 2005. I believe that Mississippi and Louisiana, their peak here was set back then because of Hurricane Katrina, which of course devastated those states here. And that's why the highest non-current percentages were around that time. I actually believe that Hurricane Katrina hit in August 2005, and that's why they had a lot of non-current payments here in October. Something worth noting here as well is that in Mississippi and Louisiana at around 7 to 7.6%, it's still fairly close to the all-time record lows that was set back in March of 2000 at around 5.2 and 5.7%. After Louisiana was Alabama, Indiana, and Pennsylvania, with the highest rates here, people being late on their mortgage payments. Something you guys should be aware of, though, is that out of these 5 top states, the only state that posted a decrease compared to 12 months ago, this was August of 2022, was Alabama, down by 1.96%. Whereas Louisiana, for example, saw a fairly significant gain, up by 3.85%. In contrast, let's have a look at the top 5 states that have the lowest share of non-current mortgages here. Colorado led the nation at 1.87%. After that was Idaho, Washington, Montana, and Oregon. However, Oregon decreased by 1.97% compared to 1 year ago. Montana saw a giant decrease of nearly 6.5%, whereas Idaho increased by 8.19% compared to 12 months ago. Having said that, at 2% in Idaho right now, overall, this is well below the peak that was set back in January of 2010, when the rate was at 10.55%. Also, for each of these 5 states here, it's also very close to the all-time record lows that was set back in 2023, as well as 2022. So for example, even though Idaho experienced a fairly big increase compared to 12 months ago, the rate right now at 2% is about, 24 basis points higher compared to the all-time record low. Let's also have a look at the top 5 states that have the highest rates of serious delinquencies, at least 90 days or more past due. Leading the nation was Mississippi at 2.2%. After Mississippi was Louisiana, Alabama, Arkansas, and Georgia. Something worth noting here as well is that each of these rates here is well below the peaks and also very close to the all-time record lows as well. And on top of that, each of these is down by more than 20% compared to 1 year ago, which means that it's actually improving compared to August of 2022. But what's your biggest takeaway from today's video? Mine is because home prices have not fallen very much. And on top of that, our labor market is still fairly strong. We're not seeing a giant surge in the number of people getting laid off. And that is causing all these figures here to remain at very close to all-time record lows regarding overall on a national level regarding foreclosures and mortgage delinquencies. But that's my biggest takeaway. Please leave me a comment below with your biggest takeaway. And of course, also consider subscribing as well. Hope you guys have an awesome day and look forward to seeing you on the next video.